Hey, what is going on, guys? My name is Tim Segewitz, and I want to welcome everybody to the live stream and workshop today. I'm also an audio engineer and tutor here at HOFA-College, and today we are going about the producing basics in Ableton and Logic. First of all, I want to say sorry for the delay. We had some small technical issues here, but that's all fixed now. The stream is working fine, so yeah, let's dive right into it. Like I said, I will go over the producing basics in Ableton and Logic. For the quick startup, I show you Ableton and Logic in between. I will switch up the DAW, so I'm going to open them on my laptop soon, and then I will show you how you get your ideas, like your musical ideas from your head, pretty quick into the DAW. So we are also going to talk about the workflow a bit, how to maximize the workflow, with also the shortcuts on your keyboard. What is the other thing? I wanted to also say that these stuff I will show to you is like my preferable stuff, so you guys can do it differently if you're maybe faster also than me. But that's only my way, how I approach the stuff. So yeah. First of all, I will open up now on my laptop Ableton and Logic, so you guys see how you are going to start up. I will also tell you guys some of the settings in Ableton I use, which optimize my workflow in the past. That's for me actually the hugest point, because we are now, hey guys, because we are now, live in a time where we actually need to maximize our time in front of our laptop. So workflow was actually a pretty big topic for me, and I want to tell you guys this. It's a producing basics workshop, but I actually want to maximize like the basics. So you get like pretty fast down a beat or like chords, how to sidechain properly. So yeah, I want to show you guys this in Ableton and Logic in between. So first of all, I also want to say that I only use the stock plugins in Ableton and Logic. So you are not need to buy some other plugins or stuff like that. So I want to keep it pretty basic, like the workshop title says. And I also want to say to you guys, I have the YouTube chat here. So you guys can throw into the chat some questions and I will answer them as good as I can. Yeah. That's actually it. So first of all, we are now starting up Ableton and Logic, so that you guys can see how the standard settings of every DAW will look like. I also want to tell you guys, we are going to make us templates. So that's also a pretty much good tip I had from a mentor of mine. To make yourself like templates where you want to do like a beat and then set up some MIDI tracks, some audio tracks where you can like easily throw samples into or easily throw into VST synthesizers. And another topic I want to say, are we only doing the stuff in the box? I don't use like a real guitar today because we want to actually bring our ideas from our head pretty fast into the box. So that's actually the fact why I don't use like a live instrument or a keyboard or stuff like that. So I want to keep this pretty basic. We're only using also our computer keyboard to play the notes in, so that you guys can see how like approach this with only a laptop and headphones, of course. So yeah, we keep it like pretty basic because the topic is like producing basics in Ableton and Logic. So now I am going to open Logic first. So let's see how Logic will open up. First of all, I set up my Logic to, it will ask me what I want to open. So I want to open maybe a recent project, another existing project from the past, a new project from a template, or like a pretty complete empty project. So first of all, I open now a new empty project. And this is the logic. I will create now real quick an audio channel so we can go over the overview. So this is actually the logic how I set it up to maximize the workflow. We are actually in the topic producing basics. So first of all, I want to tell you guys to set on the quick help, because when you guys watching like tutorials or other stuff on other platforms, I would highly recommend to use this quick help thing, because as you go over every function here in Logic, every time there is another text who like explains you what this is doing. So that was actually pretty helpful. So this is the first tip I actually want to tell you guys when you start out producing. So we're going now into a state where we maybe have opened up Logic like 5 or 6 times, and I want to actually maximize the basics. So that was like Logic, and now we're going to open up Ableton. So this is the Ableton. And this is like the standard view of Ableton. This is the session view also. You can toggle in between the session view and the arrangement view with the tab knob of your MacBook or your computer. It's like both the same keyboard settings on your laptop. This is the standard setting. So Ableton gives you a standard setting of 2 MIDI tracks and 2 audio tracks, 2 send and return tracks, and as you see down here, the master track. So the quick overview, or like I said, the quick info view on Ableton is in the bottom left corner with this arrow. This is also like the info view. You can also go in Ableton on like every button, and then at the bottom left, it will say the info to the text where you are with your mouse. So you see when I go to maybe the track volume setting of Ableton, there's the track volume, the MIDI channel, the track name, how you can edit a track name. We will go over just these shortcuts to maximize the workflow a bit later. So this is actually the view of both DAWs when you open them up, completely like standard, with nothing set up in before. And nothing to maximize your workflow. And now we are diving right into Logic first. And I will switch then up between like Ableton and Logic every time when I make something in Logic. I will show you this function in Ableton. So I set it up here at the top right corner. This is the browser button. It also has a shortcut, as you see in the quick help window at the top left. Then you can press F, and then your browser goes off. Here you can like search projects, media files, or even all files. And right now we're going to like all files. And then we have here some bookmarked stuff. This is actually when you search your browser, and then you can right click and bookmark this folder. So you can set up pretty fast folders where you have your most favorite samples in it. Like I did a workshop samples folder now for today, where I used the sample, all the samples for today, and maybe some other samples. We are like we are differentiating that this today. Then I will show you this function in Ableton. So we're going now back to Ableton. Then we have at the left side here in the, I will call it also browser. We have like here these places tab where you can set up folders, and then you can add folders, and then search here something like plugins or splice, or you can set up folders where you real quick can tap in Ableton onto the folder, and then you dive right into your own sample pack, or your most preferable sample pack, or your favorite samples you used. then you can, this is like setting up a link to a folder where you can easily drag and drop in MIDI, exported MIDI files, some samples from the past, some, yeah, I don't know, some samples from other projects even. So you can link up a project folder to this link when you say like, oh yeah, I used this kick last time on my house track, I want to use the same. The first way you can do it is like search, but maybe you cannot remember the name real quick. And then I would recommend to add a folder to your old projects. I didn't set it up this in my Ableton because I actually can remember the stuff what I used in the past, but where was it? Yeah, I didn't set it up this in Ableton, and because I can remember the name of the sample. So what I would highly recommend also to you guys is to make your own sample pack. I mean, not your own sample pack to make your own samples, but make your own sample pack with your favorite sounds. So that is also actually a workflow thing. Like, how fast can you put your idea from your head down to your DAW? What is the best way to use familiar sounds, which you worked before, and you know, yeah, this kick is fitting for E minor or F sharp minor, or when we go to harmonic stuff. This clap I used lately on this bass house track or house track or pop track is working pretty well in C minor or A minor. And then you can remember all these samples you used. Oh yeah, this works in this key, this works in that key. And then you can also produce a drum loop in like 2 minutes. And then you can dive right into some chords, dive right into playing some live instruments in there. But we keep it now, like I said, in the box today. So that is actually the setting in Ableton for the file setting here in Logic. It's like linking folders to your browser to get samples pretty fast. And then the next thing we are going about is how to create actually audio and MIDI tracks here on the left side. So you can, this is actually a new function in Logic Pro X 10.5.1 because they like reworked the sampler and all this stuff. You can drag the sample from your library here directly onto this audio and MIDI track, like, how do I say it, horizontal view. And then you can say, oh, do you want to open it in Alchemy, in Drum Machine Designer, Quick Sampler, and then original or optimized. As we see, this 808 here has the key D. So we're going to use original. And then Ableton will create us the 808 into a sampler, and then we also have a MIDI track in here. And that is actually a pretty fast way to get a sample, a MIDI track, and the sample right into the sampler. So we actually did 3 steps with 1 click. So we dragged only the sample onto the table here, set up the quick sampler to original, and then it created, like, it made 3 steps in a row. So we have a MIDI track, we have a sampler, and we have the 808. So that's actually a pretty fast workflow type of thing to get the 808 directly onto a MIDI clip. And then we can like throw some MIDI notes in there. I'll real quick go to, let's say 140. This here is the BPM section where you type in the tempo of the project. As we know, this 808 is in D. We are going to pitch that actually down 2 semitones. So we know that this 808 now is in C when we press the button C. That's actually also sometimes complicated, and also a pretty cool production basics topic. And when we open now the piano roll and you would press the C, but your sample is in D, when you press C, the sample will be played in D. So it's not actually the correct key. So you have to keep in mind that you have to pitch down the sample 2 semitones that we are in C. So we are actually playing the note C. And then we can real quick add a tuner to show you guys that this 808 is really in C, when I press the button C. It's like a downgoing 808. So we're actually first hitting a note above, and then we're hitting the note right down below. So when I press C now, oh, that's the wrong root note. There we go. When I press C now, you see the 808 will be in C. So then we'll go back to Ableton actually, where we do the same now. We use the same 808. We here also used a MIDI track, and then we're throwing this 808, it's like the hefty 808, right onto down below here in the track channel. What Ableton then does is open up a sampler with the 808 in it. It's actually the same like I showed before in Logic. So you can drag a sample onto the first setup MIDI track in Ableton, throw it on the track down below, and then Ableton will also do like one step more. Like you can type in here simpler. If you press Command F, type in the simpler, then you can double click on the simpler and Ableton will create a simpler. Then you have to drag the 808 into the simpler. But it's actually way more easy. You can like only drag the sample down on the MIDI track and then you have a simpler on it. Then we are going to controls, like I also said in Logic before, this 808 is in D. Then we're going to the transport window section, which is down here. And then we're going 2 steps down, like 2 semitones down. So when we're now pressing C, it's the same key like we have in Logic. So this one is C, and this one is also C. It's the same. I can also put on the tuner, but I showed you actually in Logic that it's the same key. So when we did this step, we actually can start recording an 808 pattern if you want to. Maybe if you want to do like a hip-hop beat or a house beat. Now I use this 808, and then we're going to make a hip-hop beat. A pretty standard one. I will tell you guys the workflow, what I do. I will use some different samples, throw them like the 808 into the track section here. Then every time when I drag the sample onto the section, a MIDI track will be created, the sampler will be created, and then we can like easily, when we press Command K, later on for your info, I will show you a sheet which I made in Word with like the most important shortcuts for the producing basics in Ableton and Logic, so that you can compare them later. So yeah, I will use different samples that we can create pretty fast a hip-hop type of beat. Maybe, yeah, that is maybe the easier thing what we can do now in this production basics tutorial or workshop, like I do now. So I will also tell you guys to turn on the metronome when you play in something on your keyboard. If it's on a real keyboard or on your computer keyboard, turn on the metronome. And then you can hear like the timing of the tempo and the BPM better. Concentrate on the timing a bit, and then you can like throw in your 808 pattern, which flows around in your head, right onto the keyboard, and then it will be transferred right into the DAW. So once again, I drag the sample into there. The sampler was created. We set up the key right, and then you can press at the top here, press record. If you have the quick help on and hover over the record, you see here on the left side, like on here, you see here on the left side, you can also press R. That is also a workflow thing. Use shortcuts if you want to get your idea fast down into your DAW. That is like the most, in my opinion, the most important stuff, like I said in the past, or like 10-15 minutes ago. Use the shortcuts. You have to maximize your time in front of your computer or maximize your workflow when you're sitting in front of your computer. Because maybe sometimes the idea from your head is like 5 minutes there, and then you have like another thought, and then the idea will fly away, and then you don't remember the idea real quick. And then you have these 5 minutes maybe to get this drum loop into your DAW, and then maybe some chords on top of that. Yeah, like I said, maximize the workflow. Use shortcuts. in Logic and Ableton, that is like one of the most important things. What I would say to my younger myself, if I was just telling me to my younger self 10 years before, I would tell him, learn the shortcuts of your DAW, read the manual, and yeah, get the producing basics from the HOFA workshop. So yeah, we're going to do now a real quick 808 pattern with this cool 808. We used the E minor key today because I actually like E minor. It's only Y keys, but F sharp, not F. F is actually in the scale, but not F sharp. So let's go and create a pattern real quick with this 808. So actually what I want to say to you too, you cannot record with the closed piano roll. So if I now press A, which is C on your computer, it will open up the automation. So you actually have to press Command K to open up this musical typing keyboard here. So you can press the letter A you see here as the C, like this. I will turn it down real quick because it's like pretty loud, I guess. So this 1, 2, 3, 4 here at the top of the bar actually in Logic says 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the first hit of the record session will appear. Like I said before, turn on the metronome, and then we are going to start now. I just don't have like a quick melody in my head. I will just do now that you guys see my workflow in Logic, but I also will tell you what I do and also what I do with the shortcuts. And then you guys can see how fast you actually can put down a drum loop, like a pretty easy and standard one in Logic. To get like maybe if you have a rapper in there and he says like, oh yeah, I don't like this sample, I don't like this sample. Let's make a beat real quick. And then you can make like, or sit like 10 minutes in front of your DAW. And then you're going to say to the rapper, oh yeah, I'm having now easy drum loop. And the rapper was scrolling through Instagram and he's like, oh yeah, you're done. I don't even have a text. So that's pretty cool actually to like maximize the workflow that maybe guys that guys see, which you work together. Like, oh man, this guy is pretty fast. He can like change up ideas really fast, have workflow in multiple DAWs, and he's like, oh yeah. So keep it basic, but if the guy who you work with sees you are pretty fast, he will work with you also in the future. That's actually a quick tip of mine. So if guys see that you're pretty fast on your DAW and can change up something real quick, that's a pretty fire experience for both of you, because maybe better ideas will occur. But yeah, I talk too much. Now you see the stuff what I do in Logic to create a pretty like easy drum loop with some kick samples, snare samples, clap samples, hi-hat samples, the 808, yeah, and maybe some crash or some percussions on top. And I will tell you guys what I do. So I throw it here the 808. I will start now with the 808 because it actually has a transient in the beginning. So it has like a pretty small kick in there. So we actually we didn't need to use a kick actually, but yeah, I will start now. I will press now the record button and then it says like 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I will start playing around with some notes, and then yeah, I will easily create a drum loop now so that you guys can see. I have my finger now on the letter D because the letter D is actually the keyboard type in E. So the letter D on your keyboard is the key on your keyboard E. So yeah, you have to think about that a bit. Because here on the keyboard you see A, S, D, F, because these are the computer numbers, but the keyboard says like, yeah, it's C, D, E, F, G, and so on. So you have to keep that in mind. So yeah, I will start now. And once again, I want to say to you guys, if you have any questions, I have here the YouTube chat. So you can throw in there some questions you have, what I do. So yeah, just shoot questions in there and I will answer them as good as I can. So I will start now with the 808 pattern real quick. So let's see. So yeah, pretty basic one. That are only like 3 808s. And right now I pressed double click on this MIDI channel so you can see the MIDI notes in here. Yeah, that was a little accident. I pressed this key 2 times. So we're going to delete this one. And a pretty important thing actually is that you now get all the notes, press Command and A, so you mark all notes, and then here on the left you see quantize. That's actually also a pretty important thing when you play in stuff with your finger. You would 100% never get a note 100% to the grid. So I will quantize that. The stuff with quantize is like quantizing says your notes will go right onto the grid like you set it. I set the grid to 16th notes because we're actually doing hi-hats later with like 16th hi-hats. And you can press here Q. So that's actually the time quantize button. When you press Q, you see these notes here will jump right into the grid. So bam, now we're in the grid. And actually now when we are playing the notes together with the metronome, you see the notes are pretty good on the grid. So that are the notes I played in. So yeah, that was actually that. And right now, let's see if this is correct here. We set this note a pretty bit. Oh, I marked everything. Let's press Q real quick once again. This note I want to have here because I pressed that too early. Now we are going to our sample library and then we're going to catch up clap maybe. Like I said before, grab the clap, throw it into here. It will open up a quick sampler with the original clap. Then we have the next sample in there. You see how fast the workflow actually is. The next thing, turn down the clap a bit in volume. That will not it will not like hit your ear. The next one, Command K to open up the keyboard here. And then the next one, just press record and then you can type in your clap. Like 1, 2, 3, 4. Record, and then we do. So yeah, this is the clap. As fast as I said before, mark all the notes, press Q, then they are right on the grid. Maybe we can longer them a bit, like this. And as you see, we now have an easy 808 and a clap done in like 2 minutes. So we're going back to the beginning. Maybe a bit too less, let's see. So yeah, the next one, what we are going to add is a hi-hat. So this is actually the same process over and over again. You see, you get pretty fast in this. Yeah, let's use this hi-hat here real quick. And then we're going to do 16th notes. Going to reduce the volume here also a bit. Going back to the start, and then we're going to, wait, I pressed that too early. So let's see. Yeah, you see, that's actually the mistake what you do when you not press Command K before. So I didn't press Command K to see the piano roll, and every time I press A, it will open up the automation. Yeah, that can sometimes happen, but yeah, small mistake from my side. And yeah, at the end I made a little roll. That should be actually not that hard, but maybe something like this. And like I said before, mark all notes, press Q so it gets quantized to the grid. And as you see here, because the fact that we are actually in 16th notes, the notes are so together, small and together on the grid, you need to actually drag them by hand a bit back. And also get some notes here with the pencil tool. That is actually also another command. When you press T, the letter T, this menu shows up and you see there is a pencil tool, eraser tool, and all these other tools. I will now use the pencil tool to write in some other 16th notes in here. Maybe we can go with that down a bit. And as you see, it was pretty fast to do 16th hi-hat notes to a 808 and a clap like this. So that was actually that. Now I'm flipping over to Ableton and do the same actual thing in Ableton, so you guys can see how you get this same drum loop in Ableton, like I made in Logic here. So this one is Ableton here. That's a sample of the 808 before. It's the same one. And in Ableton, actually, you have to set up your MIDI tracks by yourself. So I'm going now to the workshop samples here, like I used before, the hip hop folder, and then yeah, we're going to play that first in. So in Ableton, you have to set up this record button here. This is like pretty important, because if you set up the record button here, the MIDI notes will go into this lane, but we actually need them in our 808 lane. So I'm going to press record now. This is this button here. This is the play button, stop button, record button. And as you see at the bottom left corner, it's like the arrangement record button. And when you press F9, which I don't have actually here on my new MacBook, I can press Fn and then F9, but that's maybe too complicated. You can also use the shortcut, but this time I will only press this button, and I have a preset. Like it's not actually a preset. I have a pre-setting in Ableton that will count the same in as in Logic, like 1, 2, 3, 4, and then bam, it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, boom, and then you can also play in your drum loop. So we're actually do the same thing now. Like I said before, drag the 808, put it down, it will create a simpler. And then you can adjust the control. Like we said, the 808 is in D, and then we'll put it to C. So the letter A is the C on your keyboard. So it actually will also play the note C, and we're going to E. It will play E. So let's see. Then I will press record, and then it would like bum, 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 and then I play in the notes. As you see, I will turn on also the metronome here. This is this one, this white and black button here. As you always see in the top left corner, metronome. So this is the metronome. And this is like the quantize section I have for my whole view. So it will says 1 bar, and every black stripe here is 1 bar. That is actually my basic Ableton setting. Because, yeah, I prefer it like this. Somebody or anybody else use here narrow grid, wide grid, medium grid. This is like to set up the grid of your Ableton better. If you're actually using audio and then want to cut it a little bit back for maybe like a bit swangy thing, that you can humanize your drums, then this topic will go on later. To actually humanize drums, which is also pretty cool for live drums, that you can, every drummer doesn't hit 100% the right note on the grid. Every time when the metronome hits, somebody will maybe get it with some luck right on the note, but others, yeah, have milliseconds off there, have milliseconds off there. That's actually humanizing the drum loop. So yeah, other than that, you have to set up the record button here, and then press the record button at the top of Ableton, and then you can play it in. So we'll actually do this now. This is the loop window, real quick, which is actually in Logic, this one here. It's called cycle, and you need to toggle and turn it on and off with C, with the button C on your keyboard. Yeah, that was a real quick change up. between the two DAWs. But now, yeah, we are maybe do another drum loop. Oh, that was too fast for me. And we set this tempo also to 140. The tempo setting in Ableton is in the top left. So we are going to set up this once again. And then we are, yeah, this is E. Then we're maybe playing another drum loop like this. So now we are played in another drum loop. It was a pretty fast one actually. I didn't had to press this much notes for a hip hop beat. But yeah, that was now the melody what I had in my head. And I typed it into Ableton real quick. Now we are also want to quantize the notes here. And with, like I said before, Command A, we have to mark all the notes. And then you have to press Shift Command U in Ableton to open up the quantize settings. So that is actually the quantize settings for Ableton, where you can set it to current grid, fourth notes, eighth notes, or even triplet notes. We set it to current grid actually, and then press OK. So now you see the notes switched up to the right grid I set up. And then with the metronome, it actually should be pretty fine. So we are going to mark that to here and this one to here real quick to get it 100% right. So now it should actually play right on the metronome like this. Yeah, right. And the same we are going to do with the clap. I was saying to you guys before, just go onto the MIDI track, double click, you see nothing is in here. Just drag this clap down to here, and then you have it in the simpler. Real quick, if you have pretty short samples for this one, it will has the default setting snap. And as you guys see here, the sample will cut off right here. Right, it goes from yellow to gray. The sample here will cut off, and then you have to turn off the snap mode, and then the sample will play it the whole time. So we'll put it down, double clicked on the MIDI track, put it down into the simpler, and then we'll start adding the clap, which is actually the same process we did with the 808 before. So we hit record and then maybe something like this. And then we have to cut the MIDI back here and back here. Double click on the MIDI track, and then you see, like myself, you won't hit the grid 100%. As you see, I'm a bit off here, and a bit too early here, and way too early here. Maybe you can get this a bit back. So I will make this now a bit more humanized, that you guys can see that the sounds and the samples actually will sound now a bit more humanized. There we actually have two different approaches where we can humanize drums in Ableton. So the first one was what I do to set back the MIDI note a bit, like this one. Like this is the grid where it actually needs to set 100%. And then you can turn it back like maybe this. That's maybe also a bit too much, maybe something like this. And then together later with the hi-hats, it sounds way more humanized, like a real drummer plays all this stuff. This one will make a bit longer. And the second, which is also a pretty cool function in Ableton, is if you turn on this track delays. So this is actually the D in this settings here, and then this window here at the right side will pop on. So what this window says, you can actually set up the samples earlier, like you set it on the grid. If you turn it like to milliseconds down below zero, sorry, then you can double click that you're at 0. And then you can up that a bit if you want to play your samples later. So that is a thing I will later do with the hi-hats. So you guys hear that it gets way more humanized if I turn them way more back. Right now I do the trick with the MIDI notes, that they are a bit off grid. And the loop now sounds like this. I will loop that real quick so you can hear the loop. That was actually humanized now with the trick to set the MIDI notes a bit back or before the actual drum hit. Right now the hi-hat real quick. Let's use this one. To create a new MIDI track, you actually have to press Shift, Command, and T. Then you get a new MIDI track in Ableton. What you can also do is right-click in this gray area here. So you right-click in here, insert a new MIDI track. But we're going to delete this. And now we're grabbing, this hi-hat once again and put it down into, I need to have to select the MIDI track first and then use the hi-hat and throw it onto here. Like I said before, turn off the snap if you don't want to only use like the first section of the sample. That's maybe a cool trick to cut off reverb of a sample. If it has like a huge reverb, you can use this button here and use this to go to the beginning, and then it will only play the small amount of the sample. But the sample actually don't has reverb, so we're going to turn off the snap and also the loop function. And then we'll play in maybe some 16th notes, or maybe I can double with the double fingers and play some 32 notes. 32th notes, like it's a tongue breaker. So it's like to -11. Is that? Yeah, that's okay in volume, I guess. And now we're playing in some hi-hats. These guys here were way too off, actually. What I actually now make is marking all the MIDI notes, and then if I set up the quantize menu with Shift, Command, and U, this menu pops off. And if I set this up properly, I can then press only Command and U. And as you see, the notes jump right onto the grid. So that is actually also a workflow thing. If you set up the quantize settings right, you only have to press Command U and get your hi-hat loop way faster into your DAW. So we're going to use these two here. Yeah, and these guys need to be one earlier. And what you can also do every time is if you miss the note, you can really fast like type that into with the hand. So I will do this now with the hand real quick, that we are getting way more topics than to get way more topics together done in the workshop. So as you guys also hear, which is a new function in Ableton, when I mark all the MIDI clips, you see every other MIDI clips, and at the top left corner here in the piano roll, you see where this MIDI note is coming from. So this is actually the 808, like I said before, the 808 Hefty D1. And if you press it, you actually in the MIDI clip and you can adjust the 808. And maybe if you press the hi-hat, you are actually in the MIDI clip of the hi-hat and can adjust the hi-hat. That was actually a function where Ableton maybe, I don't want to say steal, but maybe copied it from FL Studio, because I don't know which version in FL Studio that was. You see the MIDI note of the other MIDI tracks. So Ableton implemented that in their latest version. And you also see the claps here, like the purple ones. And they also actually have the same color. So they are actually right here. I will set up maybe a note here to get it cooler. And maybe also do a cool ramp. So these are only maybe some production tips you can use here from myself. Just mark these 3 notes and then you hold Command, go down with the into the velocity window, and then you can like do a ramp like this. And what this will sounding is like this hi-hat sounds way less than this, and this one is sounding way less than this, and that will create an effect like a ramp. And the complete loop will sound like this. just turn the metronome off real quick. What I also want to show you guys, we can make this way more drastic. So we are now, as you guys see, at the bottom right corner now, the grid setting is set up to a 1/32th note. So you can actually type in here 32th notes. So we do this now, and I hold Command D for duplicate. That's actually duplicating MIDI notes in Ableton. And it will override every note which is in there. We delete that. And as you see, all the velocity down here in Ableton, you can also make this a bit bigger. And then we are going to do that with a ramp, and then we'll make this now way more drastic like this. And then you can hear this like ramp effect way harder than actually only the 3 MIDI notes we played before. So the loop will now sound like this. That is also actually a pretty cool way to humanize your drums way more. So you can set up actually the velocity of every note a bit differently, because like also I said before, the drummer will not play the same note over and over again with the same velocity of his drumstick. So you can actually differentiate that also with some values of velocity here. Just use some notes here and put it maybe a bit up, a bit down, or maybe you can also mark them. Mark like this should be the same, this should be the same, this should be the same, and this should be the same. And then you can drag them all down. But I didn't like hit that MIDI note correctly. So we're differentiating that. So now the hi-hat loop should actually sound way more humanized if I play it now in solo. Another thing, solo, to solo your loop, press S in Ableton if the record button is turned off. Then you're in the solo mode, and then you can hear the hi-hat pattern solo like this. It's like I said before, a bit drastic, but this is actually a cool function to humanize your drums a bit more. And right now, I will show you, I will put these notes of the clap actually right onto the grid with Command U, which is actually for the quantizing. And now this clap is right on the grid. And now what we're now doing is to set up the track delay of the hi-hat 12 milliseconds. That's like, it's not a typical like measure that the drums sound more humanized or stuff like that. It's actually a number, what I figured out in the past, which worked pretty good. I have like 8 milliseconds on claps, 12 milliseconds on hi-hats, even 16 milliseconds on crashes, what we can also add, so that this stuff gets more humanized if you were maybe a drummer and play the stuff in by hand. So we are checking this now with 0 milliseconds track delay, and after that we're going to switch up to 12 milliseconds, so you hear the way more humanized hi-hats. Sorry, that was soloed like this. So, and now we're playing that back with 12 milliseconds track delay, and that will sound a bit more like, you will imagine that it comes a bit too late, but it's also sound humanized. So that's actually a pretty cool function for like this type of hip hop beat. And this is a sound with 12 milliseconds track delay. If you want to adjust this a bit more, you can also let the loop play and like tweak with your track delay settings like this. Maybe we can set this a bit earlier, and maybe the clap to 12, like this. You hear that the hi-hat is way behind actually the clap. So yeah, this is actually the way to humanize your drums in Ableton, which is actually pretty cool. I found it out way too late in my like audio engineering or producer career, but yeah, that is a pretty fire function to not tap every MIDI note and set it a bit back here like this, or a bit forth like this, or way more forth like this. That's a pretty easy and fast way to humanize your drums. So that is actually it now for Ableton. Let's dive right into Logic real quick once again, which we created this loop here. And yeah, so this was the sampler, hi-hat and clap, and now we're adding a crash, but in audio. And as you guys will see, it will took way longer to get this crash as an audio file in there. As you drag it only into the track section, create a sampler real quick and play it in by hand. You just can like check it via your clock or your, I don't know, time clock if you have that. If you want to maximize your workflow, like I said before, and to get your ideas from your head into your DAW fast, I would recommend 100% playing it in MIDI and with your fingers. If you have to catch all that with notes and the notes maybe a bit back, the notes a bit forward, after the drum, before the kick, after the kick, the crash needs to be way more back. That's actually not the workflow I would prefer, because and yeah, like I said in the beginning, that is actually my workflow, how I get my ideas as fast as I can into the DAW, because maybe there are only sometimes you're a bit overwhelmed and have like so much thoughts in your head, and then you have like a pretty quick melody which you maybe hummed into your iPhone, and then you play it back and oh yeah, that's the melody I actually wanted to create. And to don't forget it, you can hum it into your iPhone and say like dum diddle dum diddle dum 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 dum. Then you have your melody in your iPhone. You can sample that if you want. You have your melody in your iPhone, and then you say like, oh yeah, that was dum diddle dum. And then you say, oh, there was one wrong note I recorded and hummed actually in my iPhone. That's like a pretty other different melody than I used before, but the other melody I used before fitted better into my DAW or into my drum loop. And then you're like, oh, where is actually my drum, my melody idea from before? Oh yeah, I forgot it. And then this idea could maybe be like to be a bit drastic, maybe your 100 million plays on Spotify track and you just forgot the idea. So I would highly recommend to play in the first sketches in MIDI. Because in audio, you drag like the stuff back and forth, and while you're thinking, oh yeah, should this kick be way more back or way more forth, or maybe it should be another kick, you actually forgot your melody idea. So yeah, in my eyes, it's way faster to, once again, I said it like 3 times before, it's way more faster to throw your idea with MIDI into the project. So now we're going to create, if we right click in here, we actually create a new audio track, or we can actually use the audio 1 track and drag it down. Double click on the audio 1 to rename it to crash. And then we are going to search us a crash sample. Oh yeah, that's typically pretty funny that I don't have a crash in here. Yeah, let's go to my bookmarks, real quick to my hip hop samples. Let's use this one real quick and use, where are the crashes at C? Oh yeah, nice, there's no crash in here. Maybe we can use this one. Oh, that's a pretty long symbol. That was actually too long. I thought I did let's use maybe this one. Symbols. There is a crash. It doesn't need to fit to the beat 100%, but maybe we use this one here and put it down way in volume. And as you see, it took way longer to like search the sample, go to the left at the beginning of the grid. And now you see the crash is like way too long, and now you actually have to adjust it. And where's actually the clap? So it needs to be on here. Then we're pressing T to open up this tool window here and use the scissor to cut the sample off, like maybe here. Then we're pressing double T to get the pointer tool back, mark the sample and delete the back end. Press once again T, and then we use the fade tool. The fade tool is actually pretty cool to do a fade into the sample. Like if this symbol shows up with an arrow in the right and the arrow in the left, you can actually drag from here to the left and use a fade. It will then look like this. So you see this curve here, and when you press into the curve and then drag it to the left and to the right, you can set like the cue, I would say. It's like the angle of the fade. And maybe that would be okay. Let's see. Yeah, that's actually a not 100% fitting crash for this type of thing. Yeah, but we use it. So, and as you see, it took us even way longer to get this crash with the fade and the fitting. And you see how fast you are when you're using MIDI. And then what I would now use is to press double T to come back to the pointer, and then press Command R. Like Command and R is like repeating, like duplicating in Ableton. In Ableton, the command for duplicating is Command D, like duplicate. And in Logic, it will say R, like repeat. So yeah, that's actually the command for repeating stuff. So then we're setting this crash here, repeat it once again. Use the crash, set it to here, and repeat it once again, and set the crash to here. Maybe that will not 100% fit, I don't know, but let's see. Unsolo, then that's a beat. Yeah, that's way too loud. And the next thing, what is also not 100%, which is actually the downside of using audio, how do you now switch up the sample to another one? You actually have now to do the same step over and over again. And now I will show you the way in Logic how you can make this a bit better. Yeah, that would actually be the way better sample for this. Like I said before, you can now set your time clock how fast this could be. So you can drag your sample in here, open up the sampler in the original sample, put this down, press Command K, press record, mute the crash here, and then press record, and then you have like there is your crash, which is actually a bit too long. Or we can go into the sampler here and maybe cut this one real quick. Maybe like this, and do a fade like this. Maybe even shorter. Oh yeah, too short. You see how fast that goes? That goes maybe 15 to 20 times faster rather than use audio in your session. It's like the same for Ableton. Let's see, I can show you this real quick in Ableton too. You have to press Command T for a new audio track. I will put this down and use another crash. I will now search up a crash real quick in my hip hop folder. Let's go to here. Oh damn, sorry, that's so loud. Maybe here. Yeah, why not an 8-bit crash? Same for that. You drag the audio in here. You have to zoom in, maybe cut it. Yeah, I don't know, here. Command E is cutting in Ableton. Also pretty important shortcut if you also use audio and also use MIDI. You can scissor or like cut with Command E. As you see in here, these two MIDI tracks are now two different MIDI tracks, while I cut it with Command D. Now you can zoom in a bit and see Ableton creates automatic fades in here. They're actually set up as standard to 0, so they don't have fades. Then we can do the same in Logic. Put this thing to the left, like I did here in the sampler. If you open up the sampler, it's actually the same like this. That's actually the fade function in the sampler. And this one, what I did on this sample here, that was the fade function when you're doing it with audio. So, and then we have the symbol or the crash in Ableton now as audio. And then we are doubling this, Command D for duplicating. Sorry, it's not doubling, it's duplicating. We're duplicating this to the grid, and then our loop in Ableton sounds like this. Next thing, what I want to show you guys real quick is to switch up the sample here. That's actually the best way why I'm using MIDI. You can switch up samples from your complete track in like 15-20 seconds. You can go to your grid, maybe can go to your hi-hats and maybe like throw in another hi-hat real quick. So now we have another sound in here. Yeah, it's a hi-hat, it's a bit low, a bit short. It's not low, it's actually short. Let's go to hip hop real quick. Which one was that? Let's go to, I guess there were, nope, there were nothing in there. Let's see, let's use some Kenny Beat samples maybe. Samples? Which? Ah, that was that one. That was actually the wrong one, sorry. We have like Arab music drum kits. Yeah, open hats. Then you can drag like open hat into here and have like a huge different sample. Yep. So that is actually the way how you real quick change up samples. And in Ableton there is another way to do it. I will show that really quick in here. Then we actually have to go to the break. Let's search hi-hat in our hip hop folder and go to, yeah, why not, into another like hi-hat. Yeah, nice. And what you actually can do is like play the loop, maybe only the hi-hat and the clap like this. And then you can turn on the hot swap function in Ableton, which is pretty fire. Like this, 2 arrows down here in the simpler, you can press them and then you can swap the hi-hats. Yeah, that's now like this. You see how easy that was to change up the hi-hat? You only have to double click on the sample. So that is actually another fast way to change up the samples. And in audio, you have now to put on this hi-hat in here, onto a new audio track, hope that it's in the right grid section, go to 1/16 notes, put it on the first beat, and then it doesn't work to put on the first beat, maybe cut it a bit, to the grid, and you actually see how longer that it took. Then only throw the sample into the MIDI file you did before. So yeah, that was actually the way to do it in audio, like this. Yeah, that were actually the pretty quick tips on making loops fast. So yeah, guys, that was actually it for the first hour live on YouTube. Now we're actually making a quick break and switch up to our online campus, which is only visible for our HOFA-College students. And I also want to say something to this. We have now a current offer for you guys, where if you book a course, you will get complete 12 from Native Instruments, which are like, I don't know, 60 or 70 gigabytes of samples, real samples, pianos and stuff like that. You will get that on top if you do a course at our HOFA-College. So yeah, that was actually it for the first hour on YouTube. So thank you guys for watching. Hope you learned something from me. And yeah, that was actually it. We see us in around 15 to 20 minutes in our online campus once again for the second part, which is only for our students. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. My name is Tim Segewitz. I'm an audio engineer, music producer, ghost producer, and tutor here at the HOFA Studios. And yeah, thank you guys for watching. We see us later. Bye bye.